Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth. 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. Blessings, family, and welcome back to Awaken Woman 2020. I am your host, Yana. To everyone tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad that you're here. And to all my returning listeners, the set apart women, the watchmen, the seekers, and the truth bearers, may the peace of Yahuwah be upon you as you listen to this podcast today, this morning, this evening, whatever day it is. Now, family, let's be real for a moment. Some of us need therapy, and that's just the bottom line. But before we jump into this topic, let's roll the intro. Hey, love. Welcome to Awaken Woman 2020, where femininity meets faith, beauty meets boldness, and real world issues are seen through a kingdom lens. I'm Yana, and this is your safe space to grow in godly confidence, walk in truth, and glow with purpose. From spiritual insight to current events, from womanhood to wisdom, we talk about it all, gracefully and unapologetically. So grab your tea, open your heart, and let's journey together. Because being awake in this world means walking in truth, in power, and in purpose. All right, family, salt and light. So yeah, family, some of us just need therapy, and that's the bottom line. And let me just say this as someone who just graduated, if you will, from therapy. For a long time that we were just told that just pray it away, just take it to the Lord, just go in your prayer closet, just say it to the Most High. Or, I even heard this one. If you want to tell somebody, go look in the mirror and talk to yourself and tell it. We were told to smile, to be strong, to hold it together, even when we're breaking inside, even when what is going on or what has happened in our life is tearing us apart. We're told to suffer in silence, but I'm not doing that no more. And to be honest, a lot of what we call strength is really survival mode dressed up in church clothes, or fringes, or, a three-piece suit, or whatever it is, a bust down wig, whatever it is. We know how to make it cute. We know how to present well, but meanwhile we're dying inside. What Lauryn Hill say, how you gonna win when you ain't right within? Feeding our outer man while our inner man is dying. Some of us were raised to suppress and not to heal. Some of us were taught that what happens in this house stays in this house. We learned how to function through our pains, but we never processed it. We never processed what happened in our household. We never processed the things that were done to us or said to us, our experiences, our traumas. We learned how to serve everyone else around us. We learned how to take care of everybody, but not how to sit long enough to face our own wounds. And honestly, it's in that silence. Sometimes it's the silence that we run from. We really don't want to deal with it. And that's why Yahuwah keeps calling his sons and his daughters to go deeper into a deeper kind of healing. See, Yahuwah wants us healed. He wants us whole. And one touch from him could really deliver us, not just on the surface, but heal those inner deep wounds. So I want to go ahead and talk about generational wounds. See, it goes a lot deeper than us. There's studies that I've seen about the Holocaust survivors, their offspring, and how their offspring have these certain type of behaviors because of what they experience. And if you've been in if you've been in this school system in America, you know that it was embedded in us about the Holocaust. But many of our mothers, fathers, grandparents were not raised. They weren't raised or given the space to heal. They carried trauma from slavery, oppression, rejection, abandonment, and they did the best they could with what they had. And I always thought it was interesting, these things that we see, just like when it comes to the Holocaust. There was a Holocaust that happened right here in America, but America is too dignified to talk about it. That's in the past, right? So, we can talk about what happened over there in Germany, but we can't talk about the Holocaust that happened here in America, right? Because like this is a Christian nation. But when we talk about that, or when scientists and not scientists, when they do studies on what happened to the offspring of those victims, survivors of the Holocaust, there's certain characteristics that show up. And when I always thought it was interesting, comparing now talking about our Holocaust that our ancestors went through here in America, is how there's certain dysfunctional characteristics that show up, these fight or flight that shows up in our lives. I thought it was always interesting that when people would tell their children, go out to the tree and get me a switch, and then they would whoop their children with switches. And I thought that was so interesting because I'm like, where did that come from? And then you think back, the slave owners would whip our ancestors with switches. I always thought that was interesting. Anyways, so those things were passed down. Like I said, the traumas from slavery, oppression, abandonment, rejection, rape, sexual assault, creating baby daddies. This world likes to talk about all these baby daddies, but we're not talking about the original baby daddies that was on the plantation. Okay, the slave owners that was creating broken homes. We don't talk about that. But I'm gonna stay to the course today. I'm not gonna get off on a rant right now. We inherited silence. We inherited people pleasing. We inherited the I'm fine. We just put these masks on that keeps us from really talking about it, from saying that I'm not okay. But Yahuwah tells us in Psalms 51:6, I desire truth in the inward parts. He wants honesty. He wants wholeness. He wants us healed from the inside out. And family, it is time for healing. You know, um, I like to be transparent on my I like to be transparent on this platform and share my experiences, because hopefully with me being truthful with you, it could help set you free, because I'm doing the work. I've done the work. Um, but I had to go through therapy, y'all. I had to go through some therapy because I experienced rejection and I experienced abandonment by the one person that was not supposed to abandon me, the one person that was not supposed to reject me. And this is in no way to hold anybody hostage. I'm a grown woman. I'm responsible for my own decisions and my own actions. But that doesn't mean that the role that someone played in my life didn't leave wounds. It didn't leave scars. And I had to work this thing out through therapy because it was showing up in my relationships. Fearful, people pleasing, not really speaking up. And then what happens is that eventually, when I finally got fed up with somebody's shenanigans, I would pop off. And they like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Like, you were just good. But what was happening is that I was dealing with so much. And as the Most High began to deliver me and pull me out of this, the more I started speaking up and telling people like how I really felt about what they were doing, it was almost as if they're like, wait, well, it's like they were meeting a new Yana. It wasn't that you're meeting a new Yana. It's that the Most High healed the woman, the little girl that struggled with abandonment and rejection. The Most High was healing those scars. So when I say that some of us need therapy, and that's just the bottom line, is because we're showing up in relationships where we've seen our daddies, our physical abuse, our daddies beating our moms, or our dads crack addicts, or mom crack addicts, or whatever. Insert your trauma here. We grew up seeing these things, and then as adults, because we were told, especially in the Black community, that what happens in this house stays in this house, we never talk about it. Don't go nowhere telling them folks our business. Don't be telling them people our business, right? And I understand, see, here's the thing. I'm all for not telling your business, right? But when your business or your actions has negatively impacted my life, and I'm walking through this world jacked up, busted, and all type of stuff, I can talk about how what you did influence or affected my life, and I would try to be as dignified as I can about it. But I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm telling you what I had to do. And I just pray that the spirit of the wisdom will be upon you. And if you need to go see a therapist, in the same way, see, I I was working towards becoming a psychiatrist. I was working on either I was going to go into the field of psychiatry or I was going to be a nurse practitioner, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, because I love psychology. I love the human mind. I love trying to figure out behaviors and all that stuff, right? Um, and when I worked in a psychiatric hospital, I seen how generational traumas, and not saying nothing, negatively impacted people's lives. I've seen it. And I had to come to a point where I said, you know what, Yana, no more. No more. And I had to get me a therapist. And I had to walk through and talk through some things. Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim. Transformation doesn't just happen without renewal. And sometimes that renewal comes through therapy. I know that in the Black community, we have been shunned away from it. No, we don't need no therapist. Like I said, I remember telling someone I love, I remember you have to be careful who you talk to. I remember talking to someone I thought I could trust, someone, a family member, bless that person's heart because they didn't mean no harm. But I was in tears telling this person this, how I felt rejected and abandoned, and how that shows up in my life. And I just really am considering therapy. And the person said, you don't need no therapy. You need to just get over it and whoop-de wah. Right. And I'm like, I felt wounded by the comment because I'm like, this is really affecting me. Y'all, I'm a sensitive soul to begin with. I love people hard. Um, if I call you a friend or I call you a sister, you a friend and you a sister for real. Like we locked in. But sometimes I would be in relationships with friends or people, and it was hard for me to just see them for what it really was, because I wanted, first off, I didn't want to lose a relationship because then that must mean something's wrong with me, right? These are the things I thought. Like, I don't have no shame in telling y'all, because like I said, I hope that through my expressing these things that it will help you. But I just had to get some therapy, y'all. And praise to the Most High that I don't struggle with those things anymore. And I learned how to guard my heart. But um, sometimes we have to go through therapy. Prayer does heal our spirit. You can pray about it, bring it before the Most High. But therapy helps organize your soul, your mind, your emotions, your triggers. See, when I married my husband, excuse me, I remember my husband saying to me, when we got in a disagreement, I was used to being, getting a little loud. I was used to getting loud, expressing myself, because that's what I seen. I seen people, get upset and talk loud, in argument and like family arguments and stuff like that. Or, just in the neighborhood, people getting loud and stuff. And my husband was like, that's not cool with me. And I had to learn that that's not how everybody communicates. You may have come from a family where people get violent. They start putting hands on somebody, right? And then when you get upset, you put hands on people. It's like understanding and recognizing those triggers and working through those things, because we're adults. And especially if you are responsible, like we're all influencers in some realm. Even if you're the most negative person in the world, you still influence. You can walk in your job and your negativity influences everybody at work. Like we're all influencers. It's just what are we influenced by, and who or what is our influence, right? Um, Deliverance allows us, when you go through deliverance get the demons out, but therapy helps you rebuild what was destroyed, allowing you to unpack it. I had an amazing therapist. I love my therapist. I actually cried. Her and I both cried when we came to realization that it was time. The time was up. I don't. I'm a lady. I don't overstay my stay. Overstay my what. What they say. Don't overstay your I don't overstay. I can't think of the phrase right now, but I knew when it was time to go. And most importantly, I knew that my work was done, that the Most High does not have you sick forever, you know? And just like we think about if someone has diabetes or a heart issue or something like that, you go to a doctor. You go to a doctor and you take it serious. So the thing about mental health is that that's the one thing that we are not able to see. Someone could walk through life and we don't know that that person is struggling with addiction, struggling with, suicide, struggling with feeling, inferior, struggling with whatever it is. When I worked at the hospital, when I would read people case files, when I would read, or when they would talk to them, like reading their file, or talking to them when they're being admitted, after they were admitted into the hospital, you learn like people are struggling with some stuff. People struggling with some demons and some stuff that's old childhood wounds. Most of the things that people came in from is because, I seen my daddy doing drugs. My dad was an alcoholic. I started doing alcohol at this age. Or, I was sexually assaulted at this age. And then I'll just learn to deal with it. Right? That's stuff that people talk about. When you combine prayer and when you combine therapy, that's where real freedom begins. Yahuwah uses therapists. Let's talk about breaking the silence. Like I was saying earlier, that some of us was taught to never talk about it. What happens in this house stays in this house. We're told to hold secrets that poison generation after generation after generation. I know I keep giving a lot of stories, but I just, so many things just keep popping up as, I have my bullet points of what I want to talk about so that I stay on track. But my family's from Arkansas, Mineral Springs and Shaw's, Arkansas. And when we go there, one of the times we went there, my grandfather, it was a older white gentleman. And the gentleman told us that he was my grandfather's uncle. And my grandfather would get agitated by this. He did not like that man saying that. The man was welcome my grandpa over to his home. And my grandpa was just, I'm a young child. I mean, young, like preteen. I didn't really understand. And I remember the older white gentleman saying that my daddy said that your mama is his daughter. That makes you my nephew. My mama and me and your mama was sisters. I mean siblings, excuse me. And I remember my grandpa saying, ain't nothing to that. Ain't nothing to that. And I now understand that my grandfather was rejecting that, because how y'all think that, this is some small little town in Arkansas. How do you think that was consensual? You think that this white man is his uncle because, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think that, you get what I'm saying? Right? Keeping quiet, not talking about those things. So, like I said, we're told we hold these poisonous secrets, but healing comes through when we expose these things to the light, when bringing darkness into the light. So if you find yourself angry, anxious, detached, emotional, numb, that's not weakness. That's your soul saying it's time to be heard. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, I'm not okay right now. It's okay to not be okay, but you can't stay there, because Yahuwah can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. It is okay to acknowledge it, because we have to walk in wholeness. Therapy doesn't mean that you lack faith. It doesn't mean that you're weak. You're walking in wisdom. It's like when we pray for healing, we take medicines. You have a headache, you take medicine. You go to the doctor, you take prescriptions. You have diabetes. We do these things. We pray for peace and set boundaries when we're drained. Like this, it's therapy and healing. It's a holy act. It's reclaiming the parts that trauma has silenced. And when we heal, our children can heal. We don't want our children growing up with these traumas. It's time for us to break it right now in our lives. When you heal, your marriage breathe again. You breathe again. Your voice begin to carry truth. I remember a pastor said to me, maybe some years ago, I've always been, just because of my experiences in life, I've been kind of guarded. Like, I love people, but I could be kind of closed off a little bit in my shell, or it was hard for me to receive love sometime from people. And I remember this pastor telling me before he passed away, he was more of a friend than a pastor, but he told me that, do you know that you never even met yourself? Because you walk through life with the brokenness of Yana. You walk through life in the brokenness of your experiences that you never even met you. You're operating out of hurt. And I'm not no mean-spirited person, but the way I would show up. And do you know that had me sitting on that for a while? Like, wow. And I can truly tell you that after going through therapy, after praying it through, after finding scriptures, after going through, through the Most High and deliverance, like, I can tell you that this version of me, of Yana, she's free. She has been made whole in the image of the Most High. So as I said, some of us need therapy, and that's just the bottom line. Because healing isn't luxury, it's a calling, it's our birthright. And every time you choose to heal, you're breaking a generational curse that thought it was going to have you bound. Because that thing will have you bound 10 ways to Sunday. Our children be bound. Our children will, replay our hurts and our traumas. So keep seeking, keep praying, keep doing the work. And always remember that Yahuwah doesn't just want to use you, he wants to make you whole. So, family, this may have been a heavier topic, but I pray that it was encouraging and edifying to you. And until next time, family, stay rooted, stay real, and stay set apart. Salt and light, let your life reflect the Yahuwah that you serve. Shalom, family. Bye.